My brief talk today will focus on a community art and reproductive health organization, the ART of Infertility. This organization was co-created by myself and Elizabeth Walker in 2014 and has evolved over the course of 4 years. In its original conception, it was an art and portraiture project in which Elizabeth curated the first exhibit in Jackson, Michigan, and featured the art and photos of individuals from her infertility support group. Later that year, when I met Elizabeth, we applied my work with oral histories to that project and developed more elaborate narratives to complement the art and portraits. Sharing this project on social media, we began to be invited by members in our infertility advocacy network to travel to their communities and host pop-up exhibits, like this featured here at the Resolve Walk of Hope in Sacramento. We also began presenting at medical humanities conferences, like this one at the University of Iowa. Our thought was that these pop-ups, while short in duration, could at least allow us to begin circulating these pieces to new communities and stakeholders, like the national infertility community and fertility medical professionals. Fast forward a few years, and this project has now evolved into a 501c3 organization where we no longer do many pop-ups, but instead host month-long exhibits, primarily at public art galleries. To do this, we tend to collaborate with a local infertility host, and through them, gather patient-created artwork to curate exhibitions that showcase the everyday challenges to alternative family building within their communities. So right now, part of the reason that I actually can't be with all of you is that I'm currently taking down a month-long exhibit in Salt Lake City. What I want to highlight from this exhibit today is one piece developed from a new method that we tested. As mentioned, we tend to gather art by posting calls for art in the local community. This time, though, in Salt Lake City, we tested a new model in which we wrote a grant to pair patients with professional artists. This was important as some patients frequently find art a difficult medium to work with, but understand its power in translating personal, intimate moments of reproductive loss. As such, I want to share with you today a piece created from a patient-artist pairing titled Hope and Heartbreak.
Men are stigmatized if they have an inability to produce children. Like, you're not seen as manly if you can't do that. But the piece that we worked with our sculptor to produce highlights what we're missing. And I really appreciate my wife's idea to put me kind of in the front to highlight the issue with men who either don't want to or are too embarrassed to talk about it.
So we hear a little bit from Jason why he wanted to be part of this exhibit and also why he wanted the artist to create the piece that was created for him. This audio clip was featured in the exhibit and reveals important implications for this project by highlighting an under-recognized aspect of infertility: stigma. Specifically, we learned from Jason the embedded stigma that exists with infertility and how that is amplified, particularly amongst men. Health stigma, we know, is constructed through cultural ideologies that perpetuate inequalities among stereotyped demographics. For the infertility community, there is already an existing stigma in which some view infertility as a privileged desire to have a biological family. What is often missing, however, from this cultural stance is that infertility is truly a condition resulting from a variety of other real and valid diseases, such as endometriosis, diminished ovarian reserve, the side effects of radiation or chemotherapy needed for a cancer treatment, and the absence or lack of fully functional sperm. These are not elective conditions and result in the real impairment of natural family building. Further, we know from fertility studies that women of color are nearly twice as likely to have infertility problems. Perpetuating issues of stigma is access to care. Related studies show that while white women are more likely to seek and have access to medical help, women of color, as well as men, either do not have access or feel comfortable seeking fertility care. Cultural stigma has been noted then as a reason for why women of color and men do not seek assistance. Elizabeth and I see art then, as well as the practice of curation, as two methods to begin deconstructing these culturally stigmatized attitudes towards infertility. As co-founders and curators, the art that is displayed for exhibition is strategic and rhetorical. That is, we do not feature everything we receive. Instead, we practice a feminist and decolonial model of curation in which we seek to represent the multiple voices, experiences, and challenges that result from an infertility diagnosis. Further, our evolution from a pop-up exhibit to a month-long public exhibit is also strategic. Our intention is to display these artistic representations of infertility in public galleries to create awareness to the general public about the everyday challenges infertile persons face, inviting them to revise practices and policies that fail to consider infertility. These exhibits we see then engage in public pedagogy through art activism. So what does all this mean then for Rec Comp? Well, multiple things. For one, the Art of Infertility project suggests the need to reimagine research scenes and practices important to health and medicine, meaning those who want to conduct scholarship in rhetorics of health and medicine should not feel confined to typical scenes where it is expected to see health and medicine in practice, like the clinic. As living bodies, health and medicine is embodied. We carry these stories in and through our bodies. Paying attention and reimagining may open up the possibilities of where and how our scholarship can contribute to stigmatized health populations. Two, this also asks us to then reimagine scenes and sponsors of community literacy. For the Art of Infertility, we seek to create exhibits that make the technical, medicalized literacies of reproductive medicine more accessible to the everyday public. We see then art as a method to facilitate health translation. Increasing the public literacy around culturally stigmatized health conditions like infertility is vital to gaining more public support for better access to family-building options. It also asks for us then, as community literacy teachers, to think about where and how we can redesign our classroom projects. This may mean, for example, hosting community workshops where our students become designer advocates, assisting prospective adoptive families in creating adoption profile books to be shared with prospective birth mothers, or create advocacy websites for local infertility support groups to showcase to their local representatives the variety of resources in need of legislative support. This leads me to point 3, how to become an academic ally in all this work. There are multiple ways. For one, check your institution's FMLA policies and fertility coverage or adoption coverage policies. Most probably do not cover alternative family building practices. In the Wisconsin system, for example, where I work, nothing exists for fertility treatment or adoption coverage. This project asks viewers to not be static observers, but to assist the infertility community in facilitating more support, whether financial or emotional, with the real needs of family building. Finally, this project raises how we value and measure tenure-worthy practices. Curating these exhibits is time and labor intensive. It uses data, art, and storytelling to facilitate community action and hopefully change, but is not necessarily, especially in Rec Comp, seen as tenure-worthy. How do we advocate and make apparent these projects that practice engaged community scholarship? Such is a question I believe asks us to reimagine the impact of our work beyond a scholarly article or book. More conversations that reimagine this labor as value, I hope, will occur. These are just 4 takeaways that I actually don't have complete answers to, but continue mulling over as I do this engaged scholarship. I hope, though, that after this, we can take it up a little bit further in the roundtable.